We're back in the tackle room, and today we're talking about how learning how to fish with jigs doesn't have to be such a steep learning curve. A few simple steps will get you catching those giant summertime toads. You don't want to miss this one. Stick around.
That's good. That's a good one. He came up and he smashed it from behind. Oh, that's a good one. He swung my, get him up here to the front of the boat. No, you ain't going nowhere, buddy. You ain't going nowhere. Get out of that motor. Get out of that damn motor.
And here is this video's featured comment. Congratulations! If you would like to have a chance to have your comment featured in an upcoming video, all you've got to do is leave a comment. And now, on with the video. Welcome back to Lowbrow Fishing. And for much of the country, summer is really starting to heat up. Bluebird skies and that air has gotten thick and heavy. That barometric pressure is going way up, and those winds from spring have calmed for the most part. You get more and more windless days than you were. And as far as the summer goes, the more it moves along, at least in my area, the more that wind is going to die back. Now, that's not true for all of the country. There's places in Texas where that wind is going to howl and blow all the time, in Kansas and Oklahoma, on the plains. But for a lot of the country, especially here in the southeast and up towards the Midwest, that wind is going to die back. The clouds are going to separate and let that sun shine through, and it is going to be hot and heavy. So what does that mean? Well, that means that those fish are going to go down. They are going to go as low in the water as they can comfortably get away with. What do I mean by that? Well, for lakes that have a thermocline, which is the oxygenation line in the water, they don't like to go below that. So they'll sit right at that thermocline. But in lakes that either have a very low thermocline or they don't have a thermocline at all, those bass, they're rubbing their bellies on the bottom. They are trying to get as low in that water as they possibly can. Now, a lot of times you'll see them coming up and busting on shad in the surface. That's not uncommon. But for a lot of times, especially out deep, right? If you're fishing offshore, then you're fishing deep. You're going to be using deep diving cranks. You're going to be using Demiki rigs or something similar. Me? Well, this is what I'm using. Now, before you click away, okay, I know there's a lot of anglers out there. There's a lot of guys who do not like using jigs. They're not confident with them. They've never caught fish with them. But today we are going to change that because it's so simple to do. There is a steep learning curve, yes, but to get into it, to get your confidence with it, is not really that hard. And we're going to keep it very, very simple. We're going to go over the types of jigs that you need, which is very, very simple. We're going to go with the colors that you need, which again is very, very simple. And then we're going to go over rod setups, what I'm using, how I'm using them, and I'm going to show you on the water how I'm dragging a jig. And it's just so simple. So we're going to get you started. And before long, you'll be catching fish, but not just any fish, right? They say jigs catch the bigs, and with good reason. Now, to preface this, let me explain something. The wife and I, we just went back to the Trophy Bass Lake, and it is a private lake, but still, there were 5 or 6 other anglers out there in their boats, right? So it's not like this lake isn't pressured. You can pay a fee to fish this lake. It's not invitation only. So we're out there on the bass buggy, and there's 4 or 5 other boats out there with us. They are power fishing, and they're not really catching too much. The sun is out, the water's slick calm, and my wife and I, in just a few hours, managed to catch 35 bass. She caught 13, I caught 22, and we were catching them between 2 pounds up to over 7 pounds. So we were really killing them. And of those 35 bass, I caught 2 of them on moving baits. One on a square bill, one on a swim bait. Everything else was on jigs and worms. So you can catch numbers and you can catch size. So let's get right to it, right? This right here, this is a 3/8 ounce flipping jig. This is a Hack Attack fluoro jig. I like these because they have the shorter, compact hook. It's still very stout, very heavy duty. You've got the screw lock here, so you can, make sure your bait is on for good. Because when it comes to jig fishing, well, a lot of times, as I like to say, they will hit this like it owes them money. They will choke this. So having that screw lock on there a lot of times will save you a lot of soft plastics. You don't have to change it every single time. These are not expensive. Green, brown, those are going to be the only colors that you really need for clear water, slightly dinged water for most of the time. For more stain fishing at night, black or black blue. I mean, that's going to be it, right? Those are going to be the colors that you need to focus on. If you want to throw white in there, you can. But for me, green and brown, black, blue. Those are going to be the only colors.
Giant on my jig. Oh, he caught it. Oh my goodness. I was just fixing the backlash. And I got a good fish on this jig. Come on now. Yep, stay down, stay down. Oh, goodness gracious. Finally, a good fish today. Oh, yeah, come here. Finally, come here. That's a good fish. That's a real good fish right there, and he went after it. There. On the jig. On the jig, kids. I'm going to let you go. Thank you, buddy. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. Right there at the boat ramp. Thank you. On the jig. On the jig. Hot dog. All right.
So, all right, what types of jigs am I dragging? How am I doing that? Well, first and foremost, we've got this guy right here. This is just a regular flipping jig. Yes, I use them for flipping and pitching flooded brush. But a lot of times, especially in my area, I drag these across the bottom, especially in deeper water, 15, 20 feet, because there's still a lot of vegetation. There's a lot of timber down there, and this comes through that a lot better. So this is what I'm using a lot of times when I'm dragging the bottom. Another type of jig that I will be using, obviously, is going to be something with more of an archy style head, right? It's got that wide head. Now, I will skip this under docks, right? And when I am skipping under docks, I'm not using green because under the dock, there is a dark shadow. So, little tip, bear that in mind. If you want to go under a dock, I always use, a darker color, black, blue, or maybe if I am using green, it's got a shot of orange or chartreuse in it. But for the most part, this is another one that I will drag if, there's, say, a lot of vegetation through there and I want to be able to come through it, or a lot of wood because it's got that pointy head. I will use this sometimes in conjunction with the flipping jig just to give those bass a little bit different of a presentation. And what is the last type of jig I'm using? Well, if I've got a hard bottom, if I've got something that I've got an open spot that I can use, well, I'm using this little guy. And you can see he's pretty beat up. This is just a football head. This is going to be most people's go-to for dragging along that bottom out deep. If you've got hard bottom, if you've got rocks, if you've got shell beds, if you've got, sandy, gravelly bottom, this is going to be the jig that works for you for the most part. And you can see it's just brown, right? Like I said, we're not getting fancy with these. That's all you really need. Those three types of jigs are going to be the jigs that you want to focus on.
That's a good knot. Why are you hanging up on that, you? we go, I got one. Feels pretty good too. Here we go, come on, stay with it. Stay with me. Stay with me. There we go. On the jig. Dragging the jig. Dragging a jig. That's one, that's another one. That's a good bite though. That was a real good bite. Alright, dragging the jig. Come on, there we go. Beautiful, beautiful fish. Thank you for playing, buddy. Thank you very much. That's another one. Alright.
Now, when it comes to rod, reel, line setup, I really only have 3 ways that I'm doing it. In this video, we're only going to talk about 2. Like I said, we're trying to keep it as simple as we can. This is my medium to lighter setup. This is just my Abu Garcia Silver Max. I've had this thing forever. 6:4 to 1 gear ratio. You know, I like anything from that 6:4 to 1 to that 7:3. That's about where I think my sweet spot is. I've got 30-pound braid on this to a 17 or 20-pound fluorocarbon leader. And the leader's probably about 10 foot long on this. And this is just a little 3/8 ounce Arky jig. This is one that I made myself. And just a little, you know, Rage Menace grub for the trailer. And this is what I was dragging the other day and having really good success on it. But this is, you know, I will use this, sometimes go down to as small as a 1/4 ounce, but no more than a 1/2 ounce is what I'm using this. This is my lighter jig setup whenever I'm using this for dragging a jig. Now my heavier duty jig setup, and this is the one that I'm doing most of the time, is this is my main jig rod. I've got a Abu Garcia Revo S. This is a 7:3 to 1. It's spooled with 50-pound braid to a 20 or 22-pound fluorocarbon leader. This is a 7:3 heavy power fast action rod. This is what I'm going to use. I want this. I want a heavier power. Obviously, I want that backbone, but I also want a tip that is super, super sensitive. I want to be able to feel everything that's going on as I'm sliding that jig across the bottom. As I'm moving that jig across the bottom, I want to feel everything. I want to feel, you know, bottom composition. I want to feel grass. I want to feel muck. I want to feel, you know, twigs and branches and whatever is down there. And this rod, this setup allows me to do that.
I'm just slow dragging that jig along. That's all I'm doing. Slow dragging that jig. That's where I've been getting my bites. I mean, I could give it a couple little hops every once in a while, but I don't want to do anything real crazy. This is a 7:3 rod, so it's going to give it, you know, the longer your rod, the more action you're going to give it whenever you move it. There we go. That's another good one. That's another good one. That's a real good one. That's another good one. All right, buddy. Thank you very much. That's another one on the jig. The jig bite seems to be pretty good today.
Now, when it comes to how I'm working the jig, it couldn't be any easier. Cast it out, and you just drag it. Reel up the slack, and you just drag it. You know, I can sit here and tell you about it all day, but I'm going to go out on the water, and you can see how I was using it and how I was being effective with it out on the Trophy Bass Lake as I was able to catch some really, really nice toads.
That's good. That's a good one. He came up and he smashed it from behind. Oh, that's a good one. He slung my, get him up here to the front of the boat. No, you ain't going nowhere, buddy. You ain't going nowhere. Get out of that motor. Get out of that damn motor. Gonna get the stupid motor up. Come here. Come here. Oh, he choked it. He absolutely choked it. You were going nowhere, buddy. Look at that. That's another good toad right there. Hey, you be okay. I'm gonna let you go. Get the bugs off you. You'll be all right. You will be all right. Go ahead and get a weight on him, her. This big thick donkey right here. Come on, don't give me. There we go. One more time. Saying 3.04. Let's let you go. You have a good one, alright? Go be 10 pounds next time. And there it goes. That's 4 on the jig.
So there you have it. Jig fishing doesn't have to be super complicated. All you need are 2 or 3 types of jigs to get you started. Focus on simple colors, greens, browns, black and blue for when that water's stained and dirty. And make sure you've got a rod setup that is stiff enough with a good enough backbone it can handle the abuse and the torture you will get from catching those bigger fish. And I have no doubt in my mind that once you make that connection, when you can feel your jig coming through the water and you can feel those bass thumping and biting at it, and you start catching more fish and gaining more confidence, I have no doubt in my mind that you'll be just as much of a jig junkie as I am. Thanks for watching Lowbrow Fishing. We'll catch you in the next one.